Hello, welcome to a new series where I'm going to be taking a look at some overlooked games, and by overlooked I mean games which perhaps did something cool, had a couple of good ideas, just some aspect of good game design, but for whatever reason didn't really get much recognition for it. And I want to stress these aren't necessarily going to be underrated games. Some of these games might be quite highly rated or not very well received at all, and perhaps for good reason, but there'll be games that at least had something interesting or noteworthy about their game design that went overlooked. And good ideas and innovation should always be celebrated, and that's what this series will be about. And to kick things off, I'm going to talk about a game called I Am Alive, a 2012 survival game from Ubisoft. This game does a couple of things that I think went overlooked, the first of which is the ability to hold people up at gunpoint. Now, I talked about this briefly in my video on how to improve game design in The Last of Us 2, but I didn't really go into much detail. What I love about this mechanic and what makes it different to, say, the Metal Gear series is the context of how it's used. It's a lot more than just, oh, look at this cool thing you can do, but in an otherwise typical third-person shooter. You know, this is the central idea around which all enemy encounters are built. It's the star of the show, and I think it's actually an attempt at a fundamentally different approach to combat in a game. And it's such a great idea that works on so many levels. For one, it's just executed really well. I mean, it's not to say it's perfect, it doesn't have the kind of depth I would expect to see if another developer were to take this idea and run with it. I'm just saying they really got the basics right. The developers understood that for this mechanic to work they needed to do certain things, namely make resources like guns and ammo rare so that you couldn't just blast your way through the game if you felt like it. Similarly, health is rare so there would be actual consequences to an encounter gone wrong, and they made sure there was at least some amount of variety in how enemies behave. Sometimes they doubt you, they don't think you've got what it takes to shoot, they react to your actions and adjust their behaviour accordingly, they try to rush you when they see an opportunity. They don't just all do one thing the same way throughout the whole game. So these ideas at the very least show an understanding of what this whole mechanic is supposed to be about, and that's creating memorable encounters by generating tension and giving the player an agency in ways they might not normally expect. Think of most games that have enemy encounters. How much do you stop and think before you steam in a room and start waving your gun around? In I Am Alive, you have to think about how an encounter might play out and weigh up the pros and cons. There isn't that much ammo in the game, so you need to think carefully about how much ammo you do have, if any at all, before you pull a gun on someone, because that person might just call your bluff, and then what are you going to do? And there's different strategies you can use when approaching enemies, like you can fake surrender and get a free surprise kill. So if there's someone with a gun in the group, they're the biggest threat, you can try to lure them into being the one that comes towards you so you can easily take them out without having to spend a bullet. It's cool, it's just full of memorable little moments, and it actually reflects the theme of post-apocalyptic survival, where you really feel a sense that resources are scarce and have actual value to the point where you make decisions based on whether or not you want to risk using them. And it's also a world where enemies seem to value their own life as much as you do yours, and how many games can you say that about? And the other aspect of I Am Alive that I really love is how the stamina bar is used. This is something Mark Brown on Game Maker's Toolkit talks about in his great video The Mechanics of Movement, which I'll link to in the description. In most games, climbing is just this thing that you can do, the same as running and jumping. You'll launch into an ascent of a giant tower in Assassin's Creed with about as much forethought as you would jumping over a gap in Super Mario Bros. But I Am Alive does something really clever. It's not just that you have a stamina bar arbitrarily dictating how long you can spend climbing. Loads of other games have done that. What makes it interesting is what that stamina bar means, what the consequences are for using it. When you deplete your stamina, the length of the bar itself will begin to permanently decrease. And what this means is every time you embark on any sort of climb, you have to think about it first. How long is this climb? What route shall I take? Do I have enough stamina to make it? And if you don't have quite enough stamina, it's not simply that, oh, I can't do it then. You can, it's just that it's going to come at a cost. You might need to urgently find some consumables to restore your stamina. Again, in a world where resources are scarce, it's these kinds of decisions that add a genuine tension and agency to what is in most games a pretty rudimentary function, really tying in with the theme of survival in a way that so many games fail to do. Like, oh, let's just whack in a crafting system because that's what survival's all about. But it's more than that. It's about every single decision you make potentially being the last decision you ever make. And I Am Alive nails that better than possibly any other survival game I've played. It really feels like the gameplay was designed around the concept of post-apocalyptic survival rather than the other way around, like taking a conventional cover-based shooter or an RPG and just slapping a post-apocalyptic setting on top of it. So yeah, I Am Alive isn't an amazing game, it's fairly short, it ends quite abruptly, and to be honest, its years of troubled development can be felt in the finished product where it doesn't quite all come together to deliver the kind of memorable experience you'd hope for. But it's got some amazing ideas. It feels very much like a prototype, a sort of proof of concept, like look at some of the things you could do with mechanics like these. So I guess what I love about I Am Alive is not the game itself, but its potential. That's perhaps why I would love it so much if a game like The Last of Us 2 adopted the holding up mechanic. It's an idea I desperately want someone to take note of and go, hello, there's potential for something really special here, and just run with it. And that's something I think a developer like Naughty Dog could do with a sequel to The Last of Us. So there you go, I Am Alive, I think an overlooked game, but have you played it? If you have, let me know in the comments what you thought. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm currently hard at work on my next in-depth review, but it's going to be a big one and it might take a while, so I wanted to launch this new series because it's something a bit lighter. It shouldn't take me as long to produce, and hopefully I can do these alongside my bigger videos and there won't just be months where I don't upload. I've had a few people say they enjoy my game design analysis videos in particular, and to be honest, I find those a lot harder to write than my in-depth reviews, so hopefully this series where I can just talk about bits of game design I like without being so formal will be something you guys enjoy. I'm still going to be doing the bigger analysis videos, it's just something on top of that. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments and follow me on Twitter. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.